Welcome, Gold delegates from around the world. I'm Fleur Bickford, Program Director and MC for Gold Conferences International. I'm here today talking with one of our Gold Lactation 2015 speakers, Maya Vasquez, and she is going to be presenting for us on the topic of understanding cultural humility to better support breastfeeding mothers. So Maya, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So really looking forward to your presentation. Before we start talking about that though, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I'd love to know a little bit about your professional journey and how you came to be working with moms and babies.
Mm. I went into nursing later in life. I had my kids and did other sorts of jobs, but always with a mindset that I loved the birth experience, the breastfeeding experience, and eventually went back to school thinking I would be a midwife. And on my way there, I got my RN license and began working as a labor and delivery nurse. I began my career at San Francisco General Hospital, where I still am, and as I was working as a labor and delivery nurse, the job came up. They were looking for a lactation consultant, and at San Francisco General at that time, they had been trying for several years to become baby friendly. To get baby friendly certification, and they didn't, but they hadn't been successful. And so when they were looking for a lactation consultant, they were looking for someone that would also be the project manager for that program. And I just decided to sort of take a leap of faith and really challenge myself and see if I could do that role. And I ended up loving it much more than I had initially imagined it. I never went back to become a midwife. I never went back to school for that. I did eventually go back and get a master's, but not for midwifery. I really love the systems change aspect of working to become baby friendly. And then since then I've again, switched hats, and now I'm a nurse manager again with the idea that I love to work on systems change. And I'm so passionate about supporting our patient population who many of them, most of them are probably immigrants, all of them are low income, and really lack the resources that other people have, at least in San Francisco at our other area hospitals. And so I feel that improving the systems of care for our patient population in particular is really critical.
Okay, thank you for that, Maya. It's really fascinating. I love hearing about how people come to where they are, and just interesting how you had that change, planning on going into midwifery and then ending up where you are. It's interesting how that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So now I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your presentation. You're talking to us about cultural humility, but I think that's it's something that we hear, but I don't think many people understand what it actually is. So I wonder if you can just give our delegates a little bit of an idea of what cultural humility actually is, and just a little bit about what you're going to be talking about during your presentation.
Sure. So cultural humility is a concept that was first described by a couple of pediatricians, Melanie Turvalon and Jan Murray Garcia. And they were looking at how we, in a multicultural environment, support all of our patients, regardless of where they come from. And when you think about where people come from, it doesn't just mean what country they come from, but what their life experiences have been, what their current situation is, economics, religious. There's so many aspects to any one person. So they came up with this concept of cultural humility, somewhat as a sort of an adjunct, and you could consider it a criticism of cultural competence, or I think of it more as an adjunct. They really think of it as a way of a system of lifelong learning, so that all of us, the idea that all of us are learning all the time, every single interaction we have with another human being, if we're open, can teach us something about who that person is. And they also really thought about challenging our assumptions. We all make assumptions, and the issue with the concept of cultural competence, the way it's been taught, the way I was taught certainly about cultural competence in nursing school, it was more sort of a list, like if you're, I don't know, if you're from Mexico, you must like hot chili peppers and tortillas. And what that does is that it sort of makes every individual then sort of slotted into a particular idea. And we really know, all of us know, that we are not, we are the sum of our parts, or more than the sum of our parts. And simply saying, I'm from San Francisco, therefore, I must be, liberal and wealthy. That doesn't actually say who I am. That's just an assumption based on where I happen to live. So I think the cultural humility, the thing that I love about cultural humility is that it helps us open our mind to how we interact with everyone, including our neighbors and our family, but especially with people that come from other areas, have different backgrounds than our own. That was probably more than you wanted.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. And really interesting because, you describing the way you were taught during nursing school about cultural humility and or cultural competence. And, I remember being taught very much the same way when I went through nursing school. And it's so true that we, really need to look beyond, what country somebody comes from. And there is, so much more that we need to be looking at. So really excited to hear more about that in your presentation. So last question I have for you is, wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about what you hope the delegates are going to take away from your presentation. So what do you hope they're going to be able to go back to, their own practices and, kind of apply from your presentation?
Yeah, I hope that that they will take away some of those concepts and really start to think about their own assumptions, our own assumptions, when they have patient contact. I think that especially for those of us that work with patients that are different from ourselves, who, in my case, for example, I work with many, many immigrant women, and many women that have come from circumstances different from my own. I hope that the delegates will really think about what their assumptions are, and to really think about how they assess who an individual is and what might help her on her own lactation journey, and work to avoid some of the assumptions that I hear from my colleagues, and we all fall into this. I am not, I certainly am not perfect either. We all fall into assumptions all the time. So I'm hoping that it will really challenge people's thinking.
Okay, well, that sounds wonderful. Definitely looking forward to hearing more about it. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so for our delegates who are listening, you will be able to hear more from Maya at her live presentation, which will be taking place Monday, April 27th at 1700 UTC. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you online. Bye for now.